the sticky notes were taken down. And my dad said to Robert, I need you to turn the upper fan on.
Which isn't labeled.
Robert turned the inner fan on. That sliced my dad's ladder. And the vat was here. I'm sure, maybe everybody likes to see me lose.
Well, I remember.
I think that that's something that we should think about doing as well.
I remember, we sort of drifted away from that as the season went on, but when we did that for the couple episodes, you had mentioned that, one of the games that you really liked from your childhood was Space Invaders.
Oh, from my childhood, yeah.
From yours.
I did have one of my friends who I grew up with in Collingwood. Probably her parents and my parents were very good friends. So she has been watching. Jill, peace out.
This wonderful episode of TCL is sponsored by Mason Bennett John Cox Lawyers. Buying or selling your home is one of your largest financial decisions, so it's important to have a professional with you at all times. With over 30 years of experience, Patrick Bennett is your trusted advisor in residential, rural, cottage, and commercial real estate law. Patrick is thorough and efficient, offering his extensive knowledge in real estate. His hands-on approach provides you with the confidence that you have a well-rounded professional working for you. Contact Mason Bennett John Cox today.
Oh, hey, we're here.
We're here. We're here. How you doing today, kid?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah?
How about you?
I'm feeling a little tired.
Oh.
Yeah, feeling a little bit tired. We got a lot of listings. It was a lot of photo shoots I was on last week.
Yeah, true.
I think I walked through the door and it was interesting because we had 3 listing photo shoots in 1 week. And you said to me, you know what I always notice, Mom? You're really tired when you come home from them.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, but you made me think. And I'm like, yeah, it's because my mind is, I work very closely with the photographers.
You do, yeah.
I look at each shot. I approve each shot between, the photographer and I we kind of go through, is this the best angle? Is it not? So it's.
Yeah.
So I think I'm feeling a little bit.
Well, could always take a quick nap when you get back. What a lot of people are doing, I've noticed, is they're sort of creating compilations of their work, on YouTube, stitching them all together into multiple hour videos and adjusting the sound on them so that it's content that you put on when you're going to sleep and then you fall asleep to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. We'll have to look at one and see what it's like.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just been seeing that pop up more and more lately and be like, oh, maybe one day we could just stitch a bunch of segments together, adjust the volume on them, and give people a little sleepy time podcast.
From this Crazy Life podcast.
Yeah.
So I like it. Why not?
This sleepy life.
Anything will go. Well, we want to do a shout out to our Crazy Lifers, our community group. Thank you for continuing to send us your pictures. Please take a look at this one, our favorite. Wow, I cannot right now. Continue to send them to us. You can send it through our Facebook page, Instagram, this Crazy Life podcast. Of course, Instagram is you'll see the handles below. It's Terrily Real Estate. And of course, just drop us a comment. We appreciate it, but we appreciate all your input. It's been amazing.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And like we said, just send them our way. For all you could be one of the ones featured on this episode.
Wow. Everybody likes a shout out because guess what? It's about you. It's not about us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had one comment that I thought was amazing. Well, all the comments. I look at all of them. I reply to all of them.
Yep.
A couple of them I've hearted only because just when I was getting on to do a reply, my phone rang because Real estate never ends.
No, it does not.
The real estate that we have here in Ontario, Canada, is not selling sunset.
Right.
Okay. We definitely don't get paid $300,000 per commission and so forth. So, but one of our sweet subscribers said,
this season of This Crazy Life Well, this season of This Crazy Life podcast is being powered by Angela's Butcher Shop. Mom, what can you tell us about them?
That's amazing. Angela's Butcher Shop. Listen, who doesn't like a good steak?
Oh, we do.
It's patio season. Let's bring it, right?
Yeah.
What an incredible butcher Angelo is. He's located on Brock Street in Whitby under the Bellinata restaurant. You name it, he's got it. Everything you can imagine, he produces incredible quality. Austin, we get almost
all of our meat we've been getting from
Angelo
him for years.
And a huge shout out. We are so honored to be featuring you, Angelo, on our podcast. And thank you for powering us for season 2.
Season 2.
Angelo's Butcher Shop. We're going to have all the information below, right here. Reach out to him. You will not be disappointed. Can you believe it?
No, I cannot. It's a big deal. Thank you very much once again, Angelo.
Fantastic place.
For powering this season.
Yeah. So you know what, kid?
What?
Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's get you to 5,000 subscribers.
Ooh, 5,000.
And I replied, from your lips to God's ears, my friend. So we are getting further and further ahead.
We're growing.
Of course, our goal right from the get-go. Listen, everybody's got to start from the bottom up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's be real. We're not expecting, boom, we're going to hit the magic jackpot in YouTube.
Oh, no.
But we definitely need your help to hit 1,000 subscribers. And I can't believe, since we launched with season 1, just a few weeks ago, now we're season 2.
Yep.
How much we've grown.
I know, right?
And this just makes me want to cry. It really does. So we need everybody to put a comment in. We need everybody to like our videos, whether it's this one, whether it's another one, totally up to you. But we need you to subscribe if you would do us a huge, huge favor.
Absolutely. Leave some comments and let us know what you want us to talk about. Like Tara said, she reads every single comment. So you pitch us some ideas of what you might want to see on the podcast. We'll throw them on here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I did have one of my, I keep moving this mic. You know what it is? It's, I get a little antsy sometimes. I do. It's my fall, my downfall. I did have one of my friends who I grew up with in Collingwood. Probably her parents and my parents were very good friends. She lived in Stayner. I lived in Collingwood. So we knew each other. Our families knew each other for years.
Right.
So she has been watching. Jill, peace out. She's been watching us since the day that we started. And she's got a son and a daughter that are very close in age to you and your brother.
Okay.
Anyways, when I left Collingwood when I was 17, she was still in Stayner. And again, there was no cell phones back then. We called each other on landlines or we wrote letters. So staying in touch was tougher. Not the same as it was once Facebook became a thing and cell phones and so forth. Yeah. So she was in your dad and I when we got married, our wedding. So anyways, she had started watching our podcast and she was really able to relate to the video games that you and I played. She was like, oh my gosh, this is me and my son Rhodes. Tara, you react exactly the same as I did, even when he was little. So I said to her, why don't you come on?
Of course.
So this is the first that I've shared with you.
Yeah.
her and her son are arranging a time to come on again. Of course, people work during the week, so we're trying to figure out a day, possibly on a weekend.
Get the pieces in place.
Summer is very busy, so we are going to have Jill and Rhodes on.
Ooh,
it looks like September, and then of course we'll nail that down with the head honcho.
Producer Dan.
Head honcho over here. Sorry, it's director Dan. Okay.
I know, Dan. But I've called him producer Dan so long that I feel like
giving us a
it's the term
right now. So I'm excited.
Okay,
I'm excited because I think it's going to be really good for you and for our viewers to see another mother-son amazing dynamic.
Yeah.
Share some of the crazy stories that
they have. Yeah.
Your mother.
You two have as well.
Jill. The prom. Yeah. So there's a lot of really fun stuff. So we've got that up and coming, which is good. And we'll have other guests on coming forward very soon as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're still talking with Andrew and Nicole, trying to find a time that fits with all of us to bring them on. But yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. So what do you got today for everybody? What's the scoop, Loop?
Well, speaking in terms of stuff coming up, and also sort of going back to the game thing, is I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I've got my own little project in the works. I finished recording that last week, so right now it's just being edited. Don't have a time frame on when it'll be up because it's a big project. It ended up being, I think, bigger than I had intended it to be at first, but I really like how it had gone. So,
and what is it? What are you doing in this video?
It is a retrospective and a review of a game from my childhood. I go very in depth into it regarding everything, the story, the characters, the gameplay, everything about it, some of the history behind it.
Yeah.
And I just give my thoughts on it. Like, it's a series that's, I don't want to spoil too much and go too depth into it, but It's a series that has recently had its 20th birthday. So I decided to go back to the very first one and see how it holds up after all these years.
Okay. Wow. Yep. So this is going to be a video that's going to be on our existing channel, This Crazy Life with Tara, which is where you're watching this. And of course, in up and coming episodes of our podcast, once that has been released, we'll also include a link in the description that'll take you right over to that video.
And depending on how it does, if people like it and there's positive enough reception, I'd like to keep doing things like that, but that'll depend on all of you, I suppose, just seeing how it does and everything. I'll tell you what, gathering the footage, that was sort of like my night project over the last few weeks, was playing through the whole game again. Not a short game.
Right.
It's 30 to 40 hours long. So at night, I would just gather the footage, record the script, record my thoughts.
Good.
And then in the last week after I'd finished, I was uploading the footage so I could get it over to producer Dan. And I realized that a few of the clips that I had saved didn't actually save. Mm-hmm. And they were things that were important to show. So I played through the game again.
Oh my God. Well, I'm sure that didn't bother you too much. Did it? Or were you sick of it?
I'm ready to not play this game again for quite a while after this.
Got it.
Because it was all stuff that happens near the end of the game.
Oh, so you had a long way to go.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we bring that up. We have heard some comments from some of our, not only our subscribers, but also our friends, where they would love us to do another video game competition again on the podcast. We've heard Matt and Kyla mentioned it as well when they were on. Of course, your brother and Nicole is like, bring that back on. I'm sure, maybe everybody likes to see me lose.
Well, remember.
I think that that's something that we should think about doing as well.
I remember, we sort of drifted away from that as the season went on, but when we did that for the couple episodes, you had mentioned that one of the games that you really liked from your childhood was Space Invaders.
Oh, from my childhood.
From yours, yeah.
Yeah, because video games weren't really a thing for me, but they
were still very early.
They were arcades.
Yeah.
Like you would go to an arcade.
Yeah.
So, frig, I do love me some Space Invaders.
I was actually like kind of searching on like the consoles I have, like their online stores, trying to find Space Invaders. And I tell you what, for such a classic game, shockingly tough.
I mean, there was different versions of it with Nintendo
so
and
many
stuff
different
like that.
versions,
and Atari, I know they kind of had like a different style of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty.
So I was trying to track that down. So if I'm able to, that could be something we do. Or maybe we continue with Donkey Kong or find something a little more modern.
I'm not doing that Donkey Kong kart again because that was complete BS.
Oh,
I couldn't
race?
even, I couldn't, right?
Mario Kart?
Mario Kart. I couldn't stay on the friggin' no.
I wasn't doing so hot on that either.
That was definitely, listen, you big loser, Tara. Yeah, that's fine, but maybe we'll bring that back.
Yeah,
right?
I'm good with that.
Maybe
Absolutely.
We'll do that. I think that'll be fun. And we're here to just kind of throw stuff out there that makes people enjoy and makes people laugh at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what are some other things you want to talk about today? What have you got for me?
Well,
let's
see.
I think I see the wheels turning.
I was thinking actually something that we had talked about a little bit earlier.
Okay.
Well, last week we sort of mentioned that it was Father's Day. So,
yes.
So we did talk a little bit about that. Do some shout outs.
Bill and dads and your dad. Yep.
Yep. Now, that being said, there was some, if you're okay getting into this, there are people on your side of the family that I never really got the chance to meet just due to certain accidents that took place. And one that sort of like really shaped how, almost how like the entirety of Oshawa, I think it was, sort of went in terms of handling like work safety. So did you want to talk about that a little bit?
You're bringing up your grandfathers.
Yes.
Yeah. So my father was killed in an accident on the job in 1988.
Yeah.
His accident was January 12th. He was in a coma on life support at Toronto General Hospital for 48 hours where they had to pronounce him brain dead.
Right.
So for 48 hours, they were trying to make sure if he had any brain activity or not. And it was a preventable accident for sure. Right. So to our viewers, he was 45 years old. My brother was 10. I was 20. I was already married for a year. Mm-hmm. Your dad and I got married when I was 19. And, it was very tragic. He never got to see Grant. Listen, at 45, when your life ends tragically, it's unimaginable. Right. But he worked for a company, and I haven't prepared anything about this. This is kind of on the spur of the moment. And there is an article picture that we could include that I'll send Director Dan. He worked at a company called GNR Chemicals, and it was just off of Farewell and Wilson in Oshawa. So it's very much an industrial unit area. And back in those days, this particular company made the paint thinners for GM motors.
Right.
So there was 3 massive 20 to 25 foot vats. Vats meaning like they were the size of the room that we're in. They were massive width, and they were 20 or 25 feet tall.
Yeah.
So in those vats they would mix paint thinner. The paint thinner would somehow be drained. That I don't know how they did it. Mm-hmm. And it would be shipped to Oshawa. Back then had multiple GM plants. And this product was used in painting of the vehicles. Yeah. This particular day, inside each vat was an inside ladder and an outside ladder. the vats every so many months had to be cleaned. Right. And back in 1988, a number of things were so different. So many things have changed since we've had the pandemic.
Right.
We're very well aware of masks.
Yeah.
I think that N95 mask became a big one during the pandemic. I'm not 100% certain in 1988 if those types of masks were even a thing.
Probably less common at the very minimum.
There was a worker. His name was Robert Kelly, if I remember correctly. He was about 19 or 20. My dad, this particular day, the vats had been emptied, so they've been shipped off to GM. And my dad then, before they put the new paint thinner in to work the mixture, you have to clean out the vats. Right. And each vat was cleaned, from what I understand, manually by my father. So each vat as well had a big fan in this, like a ceiling fan, but more industrial, right, above each of the three vats.
Yeah.
And there were switches on a wall that would turn a fan on in the bottom of the vat as well. So each one also had a fan at the bottom.
Right.
So you had the ability to turn a switch on for the up or a switch on another switch for the down.
Yeah.
So my dad was working, had cleaned the outside of the vat, had taken the ladder and had put it on the inside of the vat to now start at the top and work his way down. At that time, as I understand it, I apologize if I'm talking too long.
No.
The code was, if you're at the top of the vat, you wear this type of mask. As you get lower into the vat, you now have to switch to another type of mask. That's as I understand it, because there was a coroner's inquest in regards to my dad's death. So I learned a lot of this during.
Right.
Huh. So my dad had started cleaning the inside of the vat. His ladder was inside. He was now needing to go a little bit further down. But before he went down to put the new mask on, he had said to Robert, I need you to turn the upper fan on, please.
Right.
Not the inner fan, the upper.
Right.
The inner fan couldn't go on because my dad's ladder was there.
Yeah.
This particular owner of GNR Chemicals, the previous month, my dad had labeled the switches and had been begging the owner, please actually get labels printed above which fan is which for which vat. And what my dad had done was he had put sticky notes in the meantime, so nobody got mixed up on which fan needed to go on. Gary didn't like the way that looked and didn't seem to want to spend the $20 for the switch plates to label them. So the sticky notes were taken down. And my dad said to Robert, I need you to turn the upper fan on.
Which isn't labeled.
Robert turned the inner fan on. That sliced my dad's ladder. And the vat was here. And my dad, his ladder got cut.
Yep.
My dad fell, but he grabbed onto the side of the vat. So he was now hanging like this. So my dad he was 6 feet tall. He was about 200 pounds. He wasn't a big man, but he was a sturdy man.
Sure.
And Robert and my dad hit his head.
Oh.
So he was unconscious because his head hit. And the vat was a very big steel vat.
Right.
So Robert went running to turn the fan off, clearly.
Yeah.
Went running to grab my dad to save him. Pulled my dad, but wasn't strong enough. And he slipped and my dad fell to the bottom of the vat. That's what happened.
Right.
So during that particular time,
it's okay.
I don't really talk about this very much.
Yeah.
chemicals get very heavy, even just the odor at the bottom of a vat.
Yeah.
So Robert saw my dad. My dad clearly was unconscious, now laying at the bottom of the vat. And Robert immediately called the police.
Yeah.
And the police at that time said, okay, we're going to send an ambulance ASAP. The ambulance got there in a few minutes.
Okay.
However, we didn't have 911. So the ambulance got there, and the ambulance driver and paramedics cannot go in a vat. They're not equipped.
Right.
They had to then call the fire department. The fire department had to come on site, had to get suited up in order to be able to go into the bottom of a vat to bring him out. My dad came out. I think they figured it was about 28 minutes later. Of course, no vital signs, because the chemicals immediately start eating your brain. They are very heavy.
Right.
They lower.
Yeah.
And so the picture that I have, which I'll let director Dan decide if he wants to put it up, shows my dad on a stretcher as they were loading him now into the ambulance to take him to the Oshawa Hospital. They were able to get his heart going. They got him to the Oshawa Hospital. Of course, I got a call. I then called my mom, and my Uncle David picked us up right away, took us to the Oshawa Hospital, where we were pulling into emergency and was met by a chaplain. And there were no cell phones, right? So it was really kind of shitty.
Yeah.
They had already airlifted my dad who hated flying, was in an airplane for the first time, a helicopter of all be, to Toronto General. So here I had to go and get a quarter, use the payphone in the emergency to call your dad at work to say, oh my God.
Right.
So the chaplain said a prayer with us.
Mm-hmm.
He said, it doesn't look good. And we made our way to Toronto General. And that's where in ICU, he also the person that tried to save him was also in ICU at Toronto General. They rushed both. So for 48 hours, they had to do testing to see if he had any brain activity. So he was on life support, and we stayed there. I stayed there. I only went home once, and that was only just to get, your dad brought me home just because I still had the dress on I was wearing at work. We just needed some clothes. And, I came back, and after the 48 hours, honey, the neurologist came. My mother was very frail, very weak. She kind of hid away in a back room. And she had said to me, you got to deal with this. I can't. So thankfully I had all of my dad's brothers and sisters there, and I'm very close to my aunts and uncles. I'm very close. And of course my dad was very religious. So there was dozens of people there, people from his church. So there was tons of support.
Yeah.
Some of my friends from Collingwood, it was on the CTV news. So they were finding out because they knew my dad. So my Collingwood friends showed up at the Toronto General Hospital. I didn't even know they were coming. They were like, you're not going to be alone. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And so after 48 hours, they continued doing testing every so many hours. I remember sitting beside him, and it's different when you see somebody on life support. You're just waiting for something.
Yeah.
And I remember before they took him to ICU, when we got there, they had him in the emergency trauma center of the Toronto General Hospital. And I remember my mom and I running in, and he was just on a cot, and he had a lot of water coming out of his eyes. And it was almost like he was blinking. And I remember saying to him, you can do this. Like, don't give up. I couldn't tell if he was crying. From what I understand from the neurologist, when you have chemicals that are inside your system, like it's
trying to flush it out.
Your eyes are flushing out for sure.
Yeah.
I do remember a small little grip on my hand. My mom said she thinks he gripped hers. Then they took him up the elevator, and by the time they got him to ICU, he was in a full coma. And immediately they had to put him on life support. So there was no real communication.
Right.
It's just sitting there, you know, looking at the machines and the nurse saying, you know, I remember thinking he farted. And I remember going, oh my God. And the nurse saying, okay, his bowel has decided to kind of work a little bit.
Right.
Don't read too much into it, but Tara, that's not a bad sign either.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Like those were the things that you were kind of waiting for. And then at the end of the 48 hours, the doctor came to me, and my aunts and uncles were with me, and he said, he's still showing no signs of brain activity, and we recommend that he, based on the chemicals and how long he was in that vat, there's no way he's ever going to get any brain activity back. And they needed me to make that decision. And I looked at my Uncle Rick, and he said, Tara, your dad would not want to be like this. And I knew that. My dad loved to dance. He loved to sing.
Right.
He was the life of the party. My dad was a joker. Like you know, and I knew that. And I just remember saying to my Uncle Rick, and I said this when I had gave his eulogy at his funeral. I'm like, what if they're wrong?
Right.
So my Uncle Rick looked at that neurologist and said, can you do the test again? And they said, yeah. So they did the test. And yeah. I had to make the decision. My mom wasn't willing to do it.
Right.
So I had to do it. I had to pull him off. And it took him less than 2 minutes to go.
Right. So I guess what sort of sticks out to me, and I mean, that's a lot. That's a very heavy story. What sticks out to me is the fact that there wasn't 911 there yet. So the fact that they were able to get on site quickly, but they weren't properly equipped and they weren't the right people for it.
So what happened after that, because this was an accident that happened at work, Workman's Comp came in and, of course, shut the factory down.
Have to, yeah.
There was a massive lawsuit that Workman's Comp did with the owner. The owner was found, you know, in default of so many compliance issues with code.
Right.
That the coroner, the Crown's attorney, actually called me and said, we need to do a coroner's inquest because this was a preventable accident. Yeah. And there were a number of issues along the way that if there were things within Durham Region, not Oshawa, Durham Region, that could save the next person. So the coroner's inquest was 5 days. And it was the Crown attorney for Oshawa. There was a defense lawyer as well. If anybody's ever been to a coroner's inquest, it's just like a trial.
Okay.
There is a jury. And the defense lawyer was for Gary of GNR Chemicals because he was being torn apart. Yeah. I went every day, as did the gentleman that tried to save my dad.
Yeah.
And basically, you know, Gary was fined, all of that stuff. He never reopened that business. And I, you know, that's all I'm going to say about him at this point.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I got nothing.
Of course. What else is there to...
But the jury did find that Durham Region needed 911. And the jury then said to the Crown in their findings that this needs to be put into place and gave them a time period. Within 6 months after the coroner's inquest and the findings, that's why we have 911 in Durham Region. And that alone is because of my dad's accident. So there was an ounce of something that came out of it, which I'm sorry, 911 can prevent so much from happening.
And it's kind of wild to me that it took as long as it did for Durham to have 911, because Oshawa, look, obviously cities grow, that's what they do, but Oshawa was never like a small place even then. Like there was a lot of people in there and there was a lot of business there. So I felt like it would make sense for 911 to have shown up sooner.
You know, honey, it's a different time. You have to understand that 911 was never always a thing. Back then we had landlines, and if you needed the police, you dialed 0 for the operator.
Right.
You know, it had only becoming, I think Toronto already had it, but it just wasn't as well known. And I'm sure it costs money to bring these things into fruition.
Well, sure. Yeah, I get that. But
it was life. It was one of my life-changing moments at 20.
Oh, of course.
Having to make a decision to pull someone off life support is a decision that I think about almost every day. You cannot help but wonder, what if? Mm-hmm. What if I had have given it a couple more months? What if, you know, he was the one person to prove the doctor's wrong? It's just not anything that I wish on anybody to have to do. I never want to ever have to do that or see it again. And I'm sure in my lifetime, I mean, I'm sure we will, but it was extremely difficult. After my dad's accident, I tried to go back to work right away. And as much as, losing your dad at such a young age was hard. Imagine that and having to make a decision to pull them off life support. I just feel for my own growth. Mm-hmm. There was so much that happened to me at such a young age that really culminated into, you know, a period in my life where my entire mind, body, and soul kind of just needed a restart and everything.
Right.
These are very traumatic events. But
yeah, absolutely.
The saddest part is I know that he would have loved to have met you and your brother, you know, but I'm very grateful that the people that stepped in, my Uncle Peter, my Uncle Rick, as substitute fathers, I've had them longer than I've had my dad. So I'm very well aware. I've always said to your brothers, you and your brother, family first.
Right. Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly, family first.
Yeah.
Right? If you got tiffs, get over it. There is nothing more important than family. There is nothing more important than if you've got an issue with someone, resolve it. I'm living proof of someone that went to work and never came home again.
Right.
It's not about money. It's not about how many houses you have. It's not about any of those things.
Yeah.
It is about love, family, and friendship.
Absolutely.
And I think from that perspective at such a young age of me being 20, that might have been the reason why I'm not driven by having to have a lot of things or a lot of money. I'm driven by people and loyalty and recognizing you can make a mistake and you can move on.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, that's the kind of thing where that happens, especially at such a young age, that really shapes the kind of person that you become.
Yeah.
Like, how could it not?
And the sad part is I probably should have gotten help sooner. I'm not even sure that therapy was really even a thing back then. I don't know.
Definitely not as big.
But I know from that moment on is when I really needed to get into some really good therapy. I've always been somebody that wants to help others. And I remember after the inquest and trying to move on with my life, and it was just such a struggle for me. And then I kept worrying about this helper, Robert Kelly. I kept worrying about him because I kept hearing that he wasn't doing well.
Right.
That he felt like he was to blame for my dad going into that vault.
Right.
I knew where he lived, and I would stop by from time to time just to check on him. And he had a hard time looking at me because he used to say, "You look just like your dad." And maybe at that time I did. But I just want to make sure you're okay. And then he would start crying and he would say, "It's my fault, Tara." And I'm like, "It's not your fault. It's the owner of the company's fault for not having the switch labeled."
Right.
And the saddest part of that story, Austin, is I was friends with somebody that kind of knew of Robert. Somehow through the grapevine, he knew of him. And he sent me a message and he goes, "I know this person. And this person was with somebody that fell in a vat. And now getting to know you, I'm thinking this person was the one that was working with your dad."
Right.
And then he said his name. I'm like, "Yeah, that is him." And he's, "Oh my God, small world," right?
Yeah.
So I said, "Where is he? I feel like I need to get in touch with him to see how he's doing." All the 20 plus years since I saw him the last time. He took his life. And I was able to find out that he simply couldn't cope with the fact that he tried to pull my dad out. And, you know, for whatever the reason, he tried.
Right.
And I can tell you, maybe if his widow is listening, I repeatedly told him, "All I care is that you tried."
Right.
Like, I owe that. I owe everything to you. And you ended up in ICU. Like, he was overcome. He tried to go down the vat to carry my dad out. He ended up passing out on top of my dad. But he blamed himself. Right.
Well, you know what you were saying about how your mind goes to what if, you know, that's a dangerous, very dangerous game to play because your mind will always sort of default to guilt when you go down that path.
Right.
But on the other hand, like, of course it's going to go that way because you're constantly thinking, what if I had done this differently and it had resulted in something else? So especially at that time where, like you said, there was less, at least options and talk about things like mental health and self-help and things like that.
Yeah.
I
Not
mean,
at all, in all honesty, that I even remember in 1988.
Yeah, very little, if any. So that's what that is. Just what if over and over and over, eating away at him. And it's a shame because, like you said, at the end of the day, it really does come down to the practices of someone who is looking to cut corners and save a buck.
That's exactly
exactly
what it was. But, you know, the good is Durham Region got 911 because of this accident. The good is, you know, I know that he would have been really proud of you and your brother. And this is why to the day I go, life is about others. Life is not about things, money, trips. It's not about material.
Absolutely.
In one blink of an eye, it can all be gone and be nothing. So, my parting words, kid.
Yeah.
Parting words.
That's what
pay your bills. Everybody should work.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to work and pay their bills and be able to put food on the table. But
yeah,
but I've seen it happen not only with myself and my cancer, I've seen it with my dad. How it wouldn't have mattered if my dad was a billionaire. It would having to pull him off life support. The money wouldn't have, nothing. It wouldn't have mattered.
Right. And listen, that's the thing. You never know at the end of the day. You never know what tomorrow will bring, or when the next time you talk to someone could end up being the last time. So you just have to cherish what you have when you have it.
Yeah.
Because you never know when it'll be gone.
Yep.
So on that note, I hope you know that I cherish you a lot and you're the greatest mom in the world, and would never,
right back at you.
Never, ever, ever dream of ever replacing you. You're just so incredible in really every single way.
Aw, I love you, kid.
I love you too.
I love you so much. So listen, I think that's, a wrap. The next episode is going to be very fun and light and airy, right?
We'll get something fun to do for the next one.
We said that we would be totally transparent. So there's another thing that we've gone through in our lifetime. Yep. And we'll bring some video games back. And you know what? That's a wrap, kid.
Absolutely. Let's cut.